Thank you, Andrew. And thank you so much for everyone who has taken your time out to join us. I hope it will be useful for you. So we will start off. Let me start by introducing our panelists. So we have three here. So Mr. PKD Lee had worked as a mechanical engineer in the Indian Railways and also the general manager of the Indian Government Mint. For 20 years, he served the Hagai Institute and is an ardent traveler and conversationalist. His experiences in traveling around the world, meeting and speaking at various events, and being a unique academician, we are sure that he would add his knowledge in this subject also. Welcome, Uncle. Next, we have Mr. Alston Olive. He's an enthusiastic young counselor who works in schools and colleges to help young students in the issues that they face and also to raise awareness about the struggles that they face on a regular basis. He, being a former porn addict, handles a lot of sessions on love, sex, and porn. Mr. Olive, we are glad to have you here for today's panel discussion. And Dr. Jamila Koshi is a well-known psychiatrist and counselor. She loves working with youngsters and helping them out in their struggles. Dr. Jamila lives in Bangalore with her husband and has 2 daughters. We are extremely glad to have all 3 of you here with us today. Lee, Uncle, I hand it over to you.
Uncle, you're on mute, I guess.
I think he's not able to unmute himself.
You can hear me?
Okay, right. Yes, Uncle.
Yes.
Let me tell you, first of all, that I'm not an expert on this subject, never been an addict, never really got involved with all this. But out of my old age, I'm talking. So one of the things which struck me is, we keep worrying about pornography outside. Is the pornography not outside you, it's inside you because of what you think and what is going on in your mind. You visit an art gallery and you see all these nude paintings and nude statues and nude, I don't know whatnot. Is it pornography or are you watching art? Or you're walking along the streets and like what many people do, they're stripping everyone in the minds. Mental images are being created. Is it pornography or is it serving the world? The doctor is treating patients. Is he treating people or enjoying pornography? See, it all got nothing to do with what is outside you. It's got to do with what's inside you. And that is what I'm more concerned on. The problem is you. The problem is not pornography. And unless you set yourself right, you're going to be having problems in your life. The other thing is soft porn is all around us in advertisements, TV serials, and some other people mentioned. The problem is I cannot become a recluse. So I have to control what is within me so that what is outside me does not damage me and does not harm what is within me. And so that is where I need to be in control of everything. By itself, soft porn may not be harmful, but if it triggers a porn which can be harmful and lead to addiction. And one of the things I'm very clear in my life is that we don't want to be addicted to anything. So depending on what it does to you, you may or may not watch, you may or may not avoid soft porn. But generally we say that, listen, don't play with fire. So we say you avoid whatever you need to avoid to make sure you don't get addicted. The other thing is the porn within me, when that is out of control, when that has been triggered by porn outside me or whatever it is, it destroys my relationships, my ability to make relationships. So what happens? I see people as sex objects and not as individuals with a I see people as sex objects and not as individuals with personality, feelings, and skills, etc. So I'm not able to relate with them or build any kind of a meaningful relationship because I'm not understanding them or not seeing them. I'm seeing something else. And because of this, people become uncomfortable with me. And because people are uncomfortable with me, I cannot have meaningful relationships. Your nonverbal communications, the way you look, the way you glance, etc., makes people uncomfortable. And that is where you'll find that it creates a problem in your life. So sometimes people ask this question, is porn harmful? One thing is it triggers a porn within me and destroys my ability to relate with people. So it is harmful. It is harmful to you. and you may not be aware of it. It's like diabetes. It just you don't feel it, but it just kills you. And you become an island. You become an emotional island where you're not able to really relate with people and build strong relationships. I come under a control of a foreign object, which it's something I don't want to do. One of the things I learned by Greek philosophy, nothing needs to control me. I need to be in control of myself. And my inner self is what really needs to be kept free from any addictions. And so I want to make sure that I don't get addicted to anything. And once this becomes an addiction, you're no longer in control of yourself. You're being controlled by something else. And that's going to be a problem in your life. Last thing, when you say porn is harmful or not, the people who are on the screen, who may be paid and they may be quite happy to do whatever they are doing, but actually they are destroying themselves. And because this is an industry which is able to generate a large amount of money and resources, they are paid well, but they are literally paid to destroy themselves and to kill themselves. And that is something which we don't want to see. When we read about the gladiators and all in the Roman times, and we wonder what kind of savages they were to watch two people killing each other for sport. But that's really what is happening when you're addicted to porn and you're watching porn, that is what they are doing. They're actually killing themselves and destroying their psychological themselves, and they're making themselves unable to have relationships with people. The second thing is, today, a lot of porn is made by human trafficking and coercion. It is not that they are willingly doing it or they are being paid well and they are doing it. It is human trafficking and it is coercion. So today, human trafficking, I think, is the third largest underground industry, largest being the arms sales, illegal arms sales and drugs. And by getting involved in financing pornography, we are encouraging human trafficking and creating a crime which is destroying people all over the world. So how can we be involved in an industry that is destroying not only you, because you're saying you're not harming anyone, I'm saying you are. By funding this kind of an industry, you're harming people and all the people who are involved in it. So it's not just about harming yourself, you're harming everyone. So that is what I would like to say from pure common sense about porn. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle. Thank you so much for that. Friends, you can send in your questions to the participant named Q&A, and there's also a Google form link. You can send it there as well if you choose to remain anonymous. Anna, over to you.
Thanks, Navi. I've been affected by porn right from a very early age in my life. As far as I remember, right from my 10th standard, I've been addicted to pornography, and it had changed the way I look at life. It has changed the way of who I am as a person, and it was quite a struggle for me to basically step out of it. And even during those recovery process, when I reached out for help, there were not many people who talk about it, especially talking about our culture. This is one topic nobody even wants to talk about it. It could be your family, it could be at school, it could be at church, it could be at any place. No one is even willing to talk about it and be open, and there was very little help which was available for me at the time. And the only thing that people basically tell us, if I go and ask this question, whether how can I get out of porn, to my peers, they would absolutely say there's nothing wrong with it, and then it's fine. But each and every one of us had our own struggle story, if I can say that. So I'm here to basically offer some help in that area, where we can look at how we can quit porn, what are the practical steps we can take, what are the mental steps that we can take, and how can God also help us in that. I want you to understand one thing very clearly in this whole session. Talking about porn, what does porn do to me? It basically rewires your mind. It rewires your brain. Just to give you an example, in a real life scenario, a person basically gets aroused by the sense of touch. When your partner, your wife touches you, you get aroused to that feeling. But when you're exposed to porn over a period of time, the sense of touch gets replaced by the sense of sight. So you're no longer aroused by the sense of touch, rather than you want a visual stimulus, which will basically get you aroused. So if that becomes a way of life, what you see today is not going to fill you tomorrow, and what you see tomorrow is not going to fill you the day after. And if I'm going to apply that concept to real life, where you get married to one person and you're there with that person for forever, looking at the same person every single day, it's not going to help you. So what does that do? It actually leads to extramarital relationship, multiple partners, and the list can go on and on. So your brain basically gets rewired when you're hooked onto porn. It not only affects your mental health, it also affects your physical health. It affects the people around you, the people who love you, the called family and friends. And like Uncle already mentioned, it becomes a feeder to the trafficking industry. It is extremely harmful to the society. I just would like to quote the techie murder in Hyderabad. If you remember that story, you'll know that the victim was basically kidnapped and raped, and these people were engaged in hardcore porn before they actually committed this vile crime, vile act, if I can say. So the point that I'm trying to convey is this: we cannot live inside a bubble saying that, okay, I'm watching porn and I'm not going to hurt anybody, it's not harming me, it's not harming anyone. It definitely harms you as a person. It changes your thought process, it changes the way you look at things, the way you look at people. It harms you physically as well, and then it harms the people around you. Relationships go into breakdowns, and then it also affects the society at large. Today, if we look into our society, we become a society which is a sex-craved society. Wherever we turn, soft porn is all over the place. There's so many triggers all around us. And, as the famous quote, it says, sex sells, and it is selling like hotcakes. And we need to ensure that we take care of ourselves, we take care of the next generation before they go very deep into this new drug called pornography. So that would be my opinion.
Thank you so much for those insights, Anna. Auntie, you can take over now. Jamila Auntie.
You unmute me on the other device.
Yes, Auntie.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen and give you. Can I share the screen? Yeah.
Okay. So so we've already covered some aspects of
this. And can you hear me?
Yes, Auntie.
Yes.
So this is some statistics. You all know it. Not spend too much time. 25% of all searches, 35% of all downloads, 28,000 clicks per viewers per second, 64 million clicks per day. Even if it's a click generating kind of site, that's a lot of clicks. 70 to 80% of college-going men, 18 to 35 years is the largest segment of viewers. Men generally outnumber women by at least 3:1, and India is a third or fourth largest consumer, so huge problem. Legal issues: adult pornography, production, publication, and distribution is a crime. Viewing it is not a crime, okay? But child pornography, viewing is also a crime. However, pornography is complicated. All nudity is not pornography. As for instance, this is the famous Harappan dancing girl, right? So she's nude, but she's beautiful, right? And she's an icon of our Harappan civilization. This is Rodin's kiss. So this is a beautiful sculpture of this couple kissing. Okay, is this pornography? We'll need to think about that. And look at this one. Okay, now this is prefaced by descriptions about the woman, okay, and the man. So the descriptions about your waist is like this, and your navel is like this, and your breasts are like this, and your thighs are like this, and your mouth is like the best wine. This is from scripture, okay, and this is a beautiful sort of presentation of the love between man and woman. So when does something actually become pornography? That's important for us to know as we think about this. Art and pornography are closely linked, but not quite the same. But we need to be able to differentiate, okay? So expressing our creatureliness in different ways is good. We need to be able to express our bodies. We need to be able to even talk about sex very openly, okay? This is all part of our creatureliness, and it's good. Nothing wrong with it. The Song of Songs celebrates it. But if it is explicit and objectifying, looking at just, the body parts, the genitals, focusing on those areas, that is pornography. Whereas art will look at the whole. So you're looking at that whole dancing girl, you're looking at that couple who are kissing, you're not focusing on their, personal attributes. Porn aims to elicit a sexual response, whereas art brings out some beauty, some aesthetic aspect, okay? And art will invoke some kind of thoughtfulness, not some kind of action, sexual action or whatever. Now, socially, most people say they oppose pornography, but don't talk about it very much. Some people talk about freedom of expression and therefore it should be allowed and all that. Okay, some people say it's pornography is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's sex education. It allows for release, things like that. So there's different viewpoints in it. And to complicate matters, soft pornography, as Uncle mentioned, have been already normalized to a great extent by films, which focus on, on nudity to a great extent, which focus on secondary sexual characteristics and genitals. So soft pornography is a big problem. But when we come to the hardcore pornography, this is what research findings have shown, that men exposed to pornography tend towards misogyny. Okay, so there is this dislike of contempt and ingrained prejudice towards women, which happens because of constant exposure to pornography. The personhood of the women is sort of diminished. Therefore, choice and consent is less relevant, which is why men exposed to pornography often excuse abusive behavior and rape more easily. Okay. Now, studies fall short of a direct cause-effect relationship between pornography and rape, but there is this tendency to excuse abusive behavior and rape and that sort of thing. What happens to children and young people exposed to pornography? There is this research finding which has shown that they develop acceptance of very casual, promiscuous, and risky sexual behavior. Okay, whether it's multiple partners, whether it's sex in different places, whether it's unprotected sex. They also tend to begin sex early, and they're preoccupied with sex. They often have problems with body image because the people that you see in the porn videos and all that are these beautiful airbrushed silicone enhanced sort of bodies. So you worry about your body image and worry about performance all the time. Again, there is this tendency to regard women as sex objects because often porn is made with men in view, and therefore there is this dominance of men over women, and the women are sort of sex objects for male pleasure. People exposed to this tend to get into early pregnancies earlier and often show stress and irritability. Now, what are our concerns about pornography? Like Uncle was also stressing, see, this whole industry violates the dignity of all those who are involved. Okay, it's treating people like objects. It's making them perform for the camera. And often it's poor and exploited people who are doing this. Okay, they often go into it from that kind of background. And the people who are making it, the people who are getting money from it, the people who are watching it, everybody's dignity is kind of compromised by this watching and sort of diminishing of the personhood of all involved. So Pope John Paul has said the problem with porn is not that it shows too much of the person, but it shows too little. So the dignity of the person, the self-image of the person is violated. You're only focusing on their physical attributes, their genitals, and so on. Now, because of this, it interferes with our self-image, the way that we view ourselves and the way we view others. Yes, as some of you have asked, definitely it gives a distorted view of sex. And this is a very self-centered, often unrealistic, sometimes an increasingly niche kind of sex, okay, some kind of kinky sex, or strange sort of sex, or different places, or it has to become more and more novel to get people hooked. And that reminds me of an analogy of C.S. Lewis, where he said, what would you think of a country where people all watched somebody coming on stage with a bowl full of food, and as music is playing, you gradually take off the lid and you allow the people to see the food, and you allow the smell of the food to come, and somebody eats it and everybody else watches. Okay, so what is this? Okay, so obviously it's a strange thing that we are doing in porn. Again, porn is often sexist. It is often male dominated, and it features a lot of violence. Okay, there's violent acts which happen towards women in this. In fact, in India, there is a particular kind of porn which is rape videos. Okay, and if you ask for the rape videos at your local pawn shop, they will be willing to sell it to you. Real rape scenes filmed and sold to people as rape CDs. Naturally, it interferes with the marital relationship because, as Mr. Olive pointed out, it interferes with your natural sex drives and the way you behave. It also increases your acceptance of rape myths, like women like rape, women like being forced, she deserves to be raped, okay? And yes, it can become a repetitive and hard to break habit with addictive features such as tolerance. So you get used to this much of stimulation, you need more and more and more to get the same level of arousal. You need more kinky forms of it. You need different forms of it, okay? So it can become this kind of habit. And most of all, it causes guilt and shame and drives people away from God. And it causes otherwise this kind of compartmentalization where you can be a very goody person at one side, and the other side you're secretly kind of watching this. So compartmentalizing your life into sections. How do you deal with it? Well, have the right attitude to our natural drives and bodies. Be willing to wait for the right, safe, and sensible time for sex. Okay, that's for your own good, rather than jumping into a lot of this solo stuff with a lot of the pornographic industry feeding you into this kind of unjust exploitation of others. Okay, and realize that you are being conned into this. Realize that this is an industry which is making money off people and making money off you. It's especially exploitative towards women and children. And this is a very unfair and unjust system. Are we going to be part of it? How do we avoid it? Again, leading a well-rounded life. It's interesting that many of you said that it was loneliness, boredom, depression, which drove you to this. So leading a well-rounded life with multiple interests and multiple friendships and a lot of activities and lot of things which enrich your life, that can bring this down. Make yourself accountable, accept that there's a reality and the struggle of our life on earth. We all will be having different kinds of sexual temptations. Take steps to break free, but handle it with lightness and humor. Okay, this is not the greatest and only sin, the way that we sometimes make it out to be. Okay, be humble about it, be realistic, and treat it with the sense of lightness. Okay, and depend on God for it, and that will help us to deal with it. And then deal with it also at a larger level. Remember, as we said, the normalization of soft porn in films and books and everywhere else has made hardcore porn easier for people to accept. Okay, so I'll stop there and hand it back to Nick.
Thank you so much, Auntie. Thank you so much, Uncle Anna and Auntie. Now we will move on to the Q&A session. So I have some questions here. I will put them in the chat box as well so that everybody can see it. So this is the first question. Is there a difference between sex in porn and sex in real life? Auntie, maybe you can take a shot at this.
Yes, I think I answered that already. Sex in porn is often very unrealistic. Okay, starting with the way that the people are portrayed. People are portrayed as being, these impossibly beautiful people with impossible attributes. Okay, so they don't have an ounce of extra fat, and they will be like very generously endowed everywhere and whatever. So this is a very unrealistic sort of picturization of human beings. We don't all look like that. And then the unrealistic sort of patterns of sex which are portrayed, the unrealistic sort of situations or whatever which are brought out, those are unrealistic, those are not correct. And most of all, it's often, as I said, male dominated. It's aimed at men largely, because the greatest consumers of porn are men. So it's often male dominating, which showing women as objects, okay, of male gratification. Now, this is not acceptable either, because any rational couple would want mutual delight, mutual pleasure for both. So yes, real sex is not the way it is portrayed in porn.
Anna or Olivana or Lee Uncle, would you like to add anything to that?
I also feel, along with what Auntie very clearly explained, even the part of performance, when all these videos are being made, we need to understand that they use performance-inducing drugs to basically make that video. Just to give you an idea, in one of the recent interviews, one of the porn stars basically gave us an insight into their world. Just to get aroused in a room filled with cameras, room filled with people, to make that particular sex act into a movie or a video, it is not easy for that person to basically get that arousal. For example, for a man to basically get a hard on, it's not easy to do that when so many people are watching. You need to understand that all these videos that have been made, it's not been taken only from a hidden camera. There are cameramen who are at work. There are people who are recording the audio. So many people inside that room. So it's absolutely not natural when it comes to making these videos. And then if you're going to ask a question, that something which is made in a very unnatural way, how can that become the natural form of sex? The answer is no. And like I mentioned earlier, the performance-inducing drugs that people take in order to have this 30-minute long video or a 45-minute long video, in real life, sex does not last that very long, or at least intercourse does not is not there for that very long period of time. So we need to understand what is real life and what is real life, and that would be that differentiation would basically give us an idea to understand that what I'm actually viewing on screen cannot happen in real life. I also would like to add on to say that when I meet a lot of young people, especially young couples, this is one of the problems that we find. We find young couples and coming and telling us that they expect their wives to do the things that they have watched on screen. And when that does not happen in real life, there is a lot of disappointments between couples. There's a lot of push and pull. It leads to disharmony within that relationship. So we need to understand that the video that we see can never become real. And if we try to bring that into real life, it disrupts that relationship. So that would be my answer.
Thank you, Anna, for that. Thank you, Auntie. The next question is here. I know porn is bad, but I started watching at the age of 13 and now I'm 23. I simply don't know how to stop. Can you give some practical tips to overcome porn addiction? Anna, maybe you'd like to answer.
Yeah, I would like to take that one. If I'm going to talk about myself, I was exposed to porn at the age of 15 in my 10th standard. And even in the polls that Andrew conducted, I think it's pretty common for us to understand that that's the actual age where people basically get exposed to. And that's one of the reasons that we as a ministry, we're focusing on teenagers to make them aware of the pitfalls. Because that's the age when they actually get hooked onto this. And as the questioner is rightly saying, it's now nearly a decade of watching porn or viewing pornography. It is not easy. Let me tell that at the start, to say that an addiction which is there in your life for about 10 years, it's not going to go like that in a click of fingers until and unless there is a divine intervention. So there are practical steps that you need to take on. There are mental steps that you need to take on. And there are also spiritual steps that you can basically take to basically quit. In a nutshell, what Anna would like to say is that no matter how many years you're addicted to porn, it is always great if someone can say, hey, I would like to quit. So that itself is a sign of intent to say that I don't want to be in this and I want to mod. But I do understand the difficulty. Now, just a few tips that Anna would like to give is that, first of all, try to destroy all the material which is available with you. It could be, let's say, a subscription. It could be DVDs. It could be anything, any form of pornography that you have on you, any hard drives that you have saved, anything. Please destroy each and every single thing. Get rid of all material related to porn. That would be the first thing that I would suggest. Second thing is that don't be online when you are alone. In fact, one of the polling questions, I saw that depression and loneliness are one of the criteria by which you're trying to fill yourself up with pornography. But let me tell you, when there is something which is a negative in your life, another negative element is not going to make it positive. So yes, I understand depression is a problem. I understand loneliness is a problem, and you need to seek out for help. But pornography cannot become a solution to that. Number third, and very importantly, I would encourage each and every one to get a mentor or an accountability partner. That is very, very important. The fight against porn is not going to happen single-handedly. It is going to be very, very difficult. You need someone who is a little elder to you, of the same sex, someone who will not exploit you for the secrets that you're going to share with him or her, someone who understands your problem, someone who understands that porn is a real problem, someone to become a mentor or an accountability partner. And to that mentor, you will need to basically give a complete access to your online gadgets, to your laptop, your computer, and everything. And that mentor has to conduct periodic checks. In fact, I would encourage you guys to this person who's asking, how do I quit it? Be willing to invest into your recovery. There are a lot of online tools that are available, filtering softwares which are available, which will help you. My recommendation would be Covenant Eyes. It costs about 1,280 rupees per month for that access. So when you install that into your gadget, what it does basically is that every time you search for porn, even if it's going to be soft porn, every time you search for porn, this software will basically put up a firewall, but at the same time, it will also send a trigger to your mentor to say that at this particular point of time, this person has tried to access these sites. So that itself will become a deterrent. And most importantly, be open to talk about it. One of the best decisions that I ever made in my life about my recovery from porn is to talk about it. It's not to shy away from it. Of course, we have a lot of issues with our culture, with our society, that we started looked on people. But at least talk to your mentors, or at least talk to a support group that basically help you. So these are some of the practical tips that you can basically take in your process of recovery. And finally, I would like to say this: every action or every porn watching starts at a trigger. You need to identify that trigger. It could be Netflix, it could be Amazon Prime, it could be a movie, it could be a song, it could be anything. It could be even a page from Instagram. You need to identify what are the triggers in your life which basically triggers you into watching porn, and then you need to eliminate those triggers. So we also have a few mental steps and spiritual steps where God can really help us. So I would like you to understand that you are a person with value. You are not normally you're filled with shame and guilt. You feel worthless on the inside. Let me tell you, God looks at you as a treasure, and I want you to look at yourself as a treasure too. And then don't quit in this recovery process. During the recovery process, there might be times when there might be a relapse, where you may fall in your recovery, but it's perfectly all right. Pick yourself up and start running back. If you want to know more, we would really be happy to help you out, and you can reach out to us. I think.
Can I
Uncle,
add?
would you like to add in? Yes, Uncle.
I wanted to add one thing. See, one thing I found, you tell people don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and it only becomes worse. So I find it's better to replace it with something else. That means if I'm trying to stop something, find something else to do. So that means like I agree entirely with everything that Brother Olive said. So once I've identified those triggers, whatever I'm doing which takes me to those triggers, I need to develop another hobby, develop something else. So find some other interest, change your friendships, to change the people you're with. And once you are able to replace that activity with something else, you'll find it becomes much easier.
Thank you, Uncle. The next question is, yes, is masturbation bad? Uncle, would you like to answer this? But if anybody else, Auntie or Anna, would also like to weigh in, you can.
Can I pass it on to Olive to try?
Sure, Uncle.
Be the expert.
No, it's so funny when someone calls you, you're a pornography expert. Okay. Masturbation as such, there's a lot of research being done. If you look online, there's a lot of people who say that masturbation is good for your health, it doesn't harm you, and so on and so forth. At the same time, there is also research which talks bad about masturbation. It says it really affects your health. Some research says that it leads to erectile dysfunction. Some research says that it leads to depression, or it alters your character trait and things like that. So, but personally speaking, what I feel is masturbation is not a single entity on its own. It's not like that one fine day you wake up in the morning and you just want to masturbate, you just masturbate it. Masturbation is like the end process. It's the end of that process. 99%, if you personally ask me, that's what I would say. 99% masturbation is the end process. It starts with something else. There's a trigger, and the trigger leads to a routine, and at the end of the routine there's a reward. So you watch something on TV, you see something on Instagram, that's a trigger, and then the trigger leads to a routine, which is you go to that personal space where you watch porn. What you watch today doesn't fill you up tomorrow, so you watch something different. So it becomes progressive in nature, and at the end of that porn watching, you have had the visual stimulus, and then now your body needs the release of dopamine, all right? And that's when masturbation comes. The second part of the routine is that after you watch porn, you get aroused, and then you start masturbating. You start touching yourself, and that process basically releases this dopamine into your bloodstream, and you feel good about it. And that is the addiction cycle. So that release of dopamine becomes that reward. So masturbation is not just like that. You will not find people looking at a wall and masturbating. unless not you have a fetish for a wall. The point is, you need to fill your mind with something or someone, or it could be even some fantasy which leads you into masturbation. So we cannot just say, is masturbation good or bad? According to me, if it is a part of the process, as an end result of a process which will feed you back into that addiction cycle, then according to me, it is absolutely wrong. And that's why we keep telling people that what you see, the amount of content that you watch, and how it is filling you up. Today we are in this day and age where we are into this fantasy. We are dwelling into a lot of fantasies, and we try to achieve them. This concept of watching videos of actors and actors, we think that we need them, and in real life, like Auntie really correctly said, you don't get people who have this perfect six-pack body. Not everybody has that. Not everybody is like those glorified body that they have, and then it becomes a part of you trying to achieve that in your mind, and then masturbation is basically helps you out. So my suggestion, or my point here is, it cannot be looked at as a separate entity, and it definitely feeds your addiction to porn, and that is one of the biggest reasons why I would say a very big no to masturbation. But having said that, there are also medical or health problems that are there because of masturbation. I think I think we have one person who has put it up on my personal message. He's saying masturbation leads to the risk of prostate cancer, erectile dysfunction, so on and so forth. So to put it in a nutshell, a very big no to masturbation. And if you want to weigh in.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of myths around masturbation, really, and yeah, if you look on the net casually, unless you have a trained mind, whatever, medical or otherwise, to pick out the good research and the bad research, you can read a lot of stuff which is from both sides. So I personally feel that masturbation doesn't cause any great physical damage to anybody. Okay, so we don't need to panic about that. But then, yes, as you said, the greater danger is that it is linked to pornography, and all the problems of pornography are taken in with masturbation. Okay. The other problem is that, yes, if it is a excessive sort of obsessive activity, then it could be a sign of some kind of a mental illness, some kind of help you may need for this obsessive pattern or this addictive pattern. So you may need to consult somebody for help. So look at it that way. Okay, it's not. I wouldn't like to put it in a box and say good, bad. Okay, masturbation itself. Look at it in terms of how it is combining with pornography to twist your mind's attitude about sex and other people. Okay, we should not look at people and ourselves in a bad and derogatory fashion. That is the greater problem. Instead of delighting in sex as a beautiful thing, we are making it into a selfish, sort of activity only for myself, which is not what sex was ever intended to be. Yeah.
Maybe I just would like to mention that I'm getting questions as direct messages. So
yes, guys, please send your questions to the Q&A participant. It becomes very difficult for us to streamline it. So please send it there, and then they will direct it to us. Thank you.
I would really, because as I was talking to you, I just got this update from one of the participants. Right. Just one thing I just want to add, because that particular question is related to what we're dealing right now. This person is basically asking me, without porn, can we masturbate only by imagining? Now, let me ask that person this question back. How do you suggest you do that? If you actually understand the whole process, masturbation comes at the end. It doesn't even start with that. It starts with some trigger, and then you watch porn, and then you masturbate. So how do you eliminate the process and just go into the physical aspect of it? I really don't know. If you're asking this question, is it wrong for me to imagine about something or somebody and then masturbate? I would still categorize it as wrong or as incorrect, because that's not the natural process of it. Even I've heard people come back and ask me this question: is it all right if I think about my wife and masturbate? My question is, why do you want to think about your wife when you have your wife with you? You don't need to think about her and masturbate. You have her with you. And then the next question will basically come: what if we are in a long distance relationship? My point is, if you are married, if you have a wife, don't be in a long distance relationship. Come together. at least not for a very long time. Don't be apart from each other, come together. So the whole process or the whole concept of this masturbation, we cannot look at it as a separate entity. It is always combined with porn, or it's always combined with some form that you previously watched, which is still part of your mind. So don't look at people. I really like what Auntie correctly said. Rather than having the delight of something which is beautiful as sex, we just keep confusing it, keep turning it into something which is really vile. So I would suggest say no to masturbation. So that would be my strongest.
Thank you, Anna. The next question, actually, there are two related questions. Maybe Auntie could answer this. I will just put it up in the chat. If I stop watching porn, will they stop shooting porn films? And then porn isn't human trafficking. They enjoy sex and get paid too. There are both men and women sex workers and porn stars. We have male prostitutes too in India. How is it trafficking?
Yes, no, obviously they're not going to stop just because you stopped watching. The issue is whether you want to be associated with something like this industry. Okay, so there's lots of evidence that people who are in the porn industry are often people from poorer backgrounds. Okay, nobody goes and chooses to become a porn star rather than a film star. No, would you think? You think somebody would voluntarily prefer to be in porn films rather than in mainstream cinema and become a huge star like Amitabh Bachchan? No, it's often because of their circumstances that they get into this. And yes, there is evidence that people are in it for trafficking. The evidence of women being, the women being disadvantaged is the whole nature of the content is often exploitative against women. Okay, so that is what I said. Now, the point is, do we want to be part of this or not? Do you want to be part of, would you want to be part of a slavery-induced thing? Would you want to be part of something which is, the underworld funded stuff? Would you really want to be part of it? That's the issue, no? This is something which is degrading and which is not very healthy for a lot of people. And the people who are making money off it are the ones who are not acting in it. Okay, so it's the others who are making money off it. They're making money off a lot of other people. So the whole industry is exploitative, and it is a very fringe and gray area, but it's a huge industry. Okay, now you're stopping, will not create a difference. I agree with you there. But still, you want to be part of it? It's your choice. Uncle, want to add, Mr. Lee? Yeah.
The one mistake I think in this question, because obviously whoever is asking this question has absolutely no idea of the prostitution industry in the country. Majority of these women are sold by their parents.
Exactly.
They're not sold by even kidnappers, they are sold by their parents. And I met the women who have been rescued, and I'm not just theorizing, these are things which I know. There are villages which are sold through this, and their parents are the ones who are selling them. Then you have those who are being kidnapped and taken across borders. They're being kidnapped from Nepal and other areas like that, and being brought to India and sold in Bombay and Calcutta. And they're being sold for as high as 2-3 lakhs per. In fact, in some of the villages in UP and Bihar and Rajasthan, they celebrate when a girl is born. The only place where they celebrate when a girl is born, everywhere else they curse, because they're going to sell that girl for 2 lakhs. And so, anyone who thinks that the women prostitutes are there because they're enjoying it is living in a dream world. You don't know what is really happening. Now, I don't know about male prostitutes. They may be all kinds of things. All have to deal with that.
Right. I just made a note here that they even made a movie out of it called The Taken. That's pretty much what we're talking about. I don't want to make them as the standout point here, but we did come across a few years back interviews from Mia Khalifa and Pamela Anderson. They are huge porn stars. And what do they say now? What are they saying now? They say, we made a mistake. The decision to go and become a porn star was taken in our early days when I was still a young person. I made a mistake of going into the industry. That's what they say in that interview. It's not us talking. It is people who are ranked as the #1 porn star in the world. They are confessing that they made a mistake when they actually said yes to this. And you need to understand all these people who act in these pornographic videos. They have a very tight contract. They are obligated. Once they sign the contract, they are obligated to do a lot of things. Of course, yes, like Gandhi said, they do get paid a lot of money. But in hindsight, when they look back, they're all having a lot of regrets to say that, yes, I made a mistake in my younger days. Maybe if I had a chance, I would go back and correct it. So if you hear that from the horse's mouth, I think that needs to make us think that, hey, there's something really wrong in it. It's not what we think. It's not all roses, and it's not all a very bright story. There is definitely a very dark side to it. And I also want you to understand that don't ever think that you're sitting inside of the screen and you have you're no way liable. You are definitely as much as responsible for, even as those people went and kidnapped or sold people. You are as much as responsible as them as they are. You are the part of that demand which they supply. So supply and demand is definitely there. So we cannot just wash our hands to say, oh, I'm just sitting here in front of my computer. I'm not kidnapping anybody. I'm not harming anybody. You're living in a bubble. That's what I would like to say. You need to break that bubble. You need to understand the real hardcore reality of why people are being forced into these things. So as Uncle said, this whole question, you basically need to have a reality check. I'm sorry.
The other thing you need to realize, for them to be able to keep doing this, a lot of them are forced into drugs. Because without living, taking the mind off it by drugs, so they all end up as drug addicts because they cannot live with themselves. And that is also a reality.
Thank you, Uncle. I'll post the next question. Also, panelists, can we try to keep the answers a little short? We have a flood of questions coming in. So yeah, the next question is here. Diabetes kills 1.5 million people every year. Sugar, including companies like Coke, constitute a multi-billion-dollar industry. Using your same thought that an industry is hurting people, shouldn't we boycott sugar and Coke as well? I assume Coke is Coca-Cola, so.
Yeah, listen, it's very simple. Those people who have diabetes don't take Coke. Those who have diabetes, don't have diabetes, why do we deprive them of the pleasure of having Coke? So this is the same approach that we are taking even for porn. I think a porn doesn't affect you. You go watch it, I don't care. But I'm telling you, it affects you. Now, there are 50% of the population, nothing happens if they take Coca-Cola or any of those soft drinks and things like that. Nothing really happens to them. So why do we deprive them of it? Okay, so you can't use this as an argument saying that we should permit porn.
Next question, maybe.
I think this is for you, Auntie. Unlike what ma'am said, both sexes always wanted multiple partners throughout history, but it was our morals which controlled our inner desires. Now, porn has opened up possibilities for both sexes. Also, having multiple partners helps us navigate through relationships with ease. Am I wrong?
Okay, good question. But I don't think you're completely right in saying that both sexes always wanted multiple partners throughout history. Most of the time, if you see most cultures, they have policed women's sexuality, and mostly men have tended to have multiple partners and not women. Very few women would have multiple partners and be so casual about, morality is often put on women. So the whole thing that you're saying that porn has opened up possibilities for both sexes. Well, for one thing, it is only in imagination. It is not, it is not real. It is visual. It is only what you're watching. But you will find that in most of my cases, when people come to me with this problem, the women do not like the men being addicted to porn. Okay, it's not something which they take to very kindly. They are very upset with their husband's addiction to porn. They see it as unfaithfulness. Okay, which it is in a way, because it is, you are sort of saying that I prefer that woman and that visual sight to you. Okay, and your touch, as Olive pointed out earlier, is not arousing me, but I want this visual stimulation from that woman or those women. Okay, so it's not something that women take to very kindly. So this idea that women are very happy with, with their husband being addicted to porn is not true. Most of the time, it creates problems within the relationship. A lot of relationships have been destroyed because of this. Okay, and particularly if it's not controlled and it's not dealt with, and particularly if there is child porn being watched, then the women get extremely scared and extremely distressed, and it causes a lot of trouble. Okay.
Thank you, Auntie. I'll move to the next question. Anna, maybe you can answer this. I find porn stars more beautiful than girls in my surroundings. Why is it wrong to relish the pleasure of a woman in my mind?
I think we already spoke about this a little bit. First of all, what you're seeing on screen is not real, right? It's been set up. So it's basically to make you get hooked onto the scene and make you an addict, if I can say. The second thing is that when you keep getting exposed to that kind of an imagery, you start expecting that in your real life. So you start expecting, or should I say, you become very judgmental to say, this is what I like and this is how I want things to be in real life. And you start expecting that in real life. You start looking at those parameters in real life. And I'm sorry to say that you will be filled with disappointment. And you cannot have one fantasy in your mind and then you're living in real life. You're basically living in that fantasy. Real life is not going to excite you. Real life sex is not going to excite you. A real life person is not going to excite you. Recently we did a video shoot on this whole pornographic series, and after that, those videos were published by Crosswave. One of the persons who saw the video got back to me, and she shared her story. She basically kind of told me that, just connecting to the answer that Auntie gave previously, this woman, she says, I'm married, I have a daughter, but my husband openly, he has confessed to his wife to say that looking at you doesn't even arouse me. So I'm going to put a piece of cloth over your face, and then I'm going to make sex, but I'm going to watch something on my mobile, and I'm going to do the act with you. That is what it will do to your mind. Just thinking about what that girl or that woman had to go through, that wife had to go through, it's heartbreaking. Now, Auntie very clearly said, women do not like that. They consider that to be cheating. You cannot look at some form of a fantasy image, and then you're willing to have the physical act with somebody, and you want that particular partner or your wife to be okay with it. I'm sorry. So my answer to this question is this: if you're going to look at porn stars who are not real, I would, if you look at them without their makeup, you'll understand the whole reality of it. But then when you keep on watching things which are not real, at the subconscious level, you start expecting that in your real life. And in your real life, it will be filled with disappointments, which may lead into depressions, disruption in the family. It basically destroys you, destroys your family. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Anna. I think
besides the whole idea of, that my partner has to be beautiful itself is very shallow. I'm sorry, we are not beauties ourselves. None of us are film star beauties or anything. No? So why are we expecting such beauty in our partner? Okay, so we should be, it is a little shallow, no, that attitude. Okay, so it's better to look for character in the person that you are relating to rather than beauty alone. That's not a very mature thing to do. So maybe you need to deal with that.
There's this question in the chat box. I think, Anna, you've already answered it. I'll read it anyway. Can't we watch porn and be self-satisfied until we get married and then have it for real? I think self-satisfaction or self-rewarding are part of life anyway. Personally, when I see porn, I feel I'm not lusting for it or committing adultery, but just for self-pleasure, I'm doing it. Like having cold water when thirsty. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or should I just move on to the next one?
You already answered it, I think.
Yes, Auntie. Okay. Can we marry someone who's addicted to porn? What to do if you know that your partner is a porn addict? Anyone can just, whoever feels like.
Mr. Lee,
to start?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll add on to it.
Mr. Lee, why don't you take that? Yeah.
Uncle, you have to unmute yourself.
See, most people will not be able to know whether your partner you're going to marry is addicted to porn or not. Even if you're having a love marriage, the one of the beauties of love marriage, you know nothing about your partner and you think you know everything. And so you all get a great disappointment the day you get married. Now, if you know your partner is a porn addict, Normally, what I would normally recommend is try and see a counselor and get your partner to agree to see a counselor and deal with it. Because it is a de-addiction program. So normally, if you are addicted to alcohol, you'll put them in a rehab center. For porn, I presume that there are counselors and psychiatrists and all who deal with it. So probably they need to see one.
Yes, Uncle. Auntie, there's a question for you, actually. Anna, is there something you wanted
I
to say?
just wanted to add to this. A partner's role in recovery is very, very critical. If you know that your partner is addicted, I would suggest that you be as supportive as possible. Don't be judgmental. Just help him or her through the process. In fact, in my life, I have a history of this addiction to porn. So even now, when I'm dealing with this topic, when I do a lot of searches, there's always this temptation to go back into it. So my wife plays a huge role in this area, where I ask her to check my phones, or I'm accountable to her, in other words. So I would suggest that if you know your partner has been an addict or is an addict, then be as supportive as possible, but ensure that you're accountable to each other. Don't be judgmental, and help him or her in that process of recovery. So that's what I would like to add.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Auntie, this question was directed to you. They also wanted some help on how to get out of it. Porn and masturbation often become alternatives to release frustration triggered by social anxiety and other such issues. What alternatives can we rely on next time we get frustrated, and how to not fall into this trap next time there's an urge, and also some practical ways to get out of it?
Okay, so that showed very clearly in the questions that were put up, that many people go into this because they're lonely or bored or depressed. So yes, I think you should just start handling the loneliness and the depression, rather than taking short-term measures to sort of give yourself a little high. Okay, which is what you're doing with porn and masturbation. So it's important for you, for instance, to understand why you're depressed, why you're lonely. It's important for you to understand whether there is a need for medication, for therapy. It's important for you to understand what are your triggers for this loneliness and depression. Important for you to understand your own family pattern. Okay, is there depression and anxiety in the family? Is it something which which has been taught to me, or which has come down to me in my genes? So all these things have got to be understood. Go to a counselor, go to somebody, go to a psychologist, go to a psychiatrist, get these things addressed. Okay, most of these things are they can be addressed nowadays. We have a lot of measures to do it. So start by writing a diary and writing down your own thoughts and feelings. Write down your problems as you see it. Okay, write down your context as you see it, and then go for help. Once you start going for help and getting help with these core issues, then perhaps your need for this this particular self-stimulation will come down.
Yes, Auntie. Thank you. Okay. So when I was overweight, I never had the intention to watch porn. But when I started to shed weight, the tendency to watch porn has increased.
Okay, that's an interesting observation, and it probably has some interesting psychological factors behind it. Okay, perhaps you are getting more aware of your body. Perhaps you're more pleased with your body. Perhaps you are exploring different physical issues here, and maybe that is why the issue has come up. Okay, but in any case, you need to figure out what are the particular triggers which are causing you to sort of get into this a lot, and start dealing with it. Okay, the same way that we dealt with all the others.
Thank you, Auntie. Maybe Lee Uncle, you could answer this. I'm teaching college students now. I just finished my post-graduation. When my students ask for book suggestions, I find it really hard to suggest books, because almost every popular selling book that we read contains some kind of pornography in it. How can I help my students to ignore porn elements in the books and concentrate on other lessons that the books teach?
I think the way you design, I'm not a professor, so I wouldn't know the real way in which you do all this, but I would say the way you design the questions which you're asking the person to research in the book which you're asking them to study. Basically, it is coming from literature. And when you're asking literature students, they don't ask them to read the book like a novel. From what I know about literature, they normally ask them to analyze what is the writer thinking and I don't know what not. So you can always guide them to those portions of the book which you feel are helpful. That is one. Secondly, I like what Jamila was saying, that see, when you're looking at a book, at an artwork, when you're looking at an art gallery, it is supposed to be bringing out the beauty of the whole person and not a sex object. But still people will see it as a sex object. That is the problem. So now the faculty has to try and help the student to be able to see the book as a work of art, bringing out the beauty of the person rather than as a sex object. Now, I know that's not going to be easy, frankly. So since I've not done it, I cannot tell you how you do that. But that is the way you, I mean, what Jamila said is the way in which you have to go.
Thank you, Uncle. The next one. Abuse victims sometimes have compulsive masturbation as a result of trauma. How do you say it always follows triggered porn masturbation? Anna or Auntie?
Okay, see, yes, it is true that abuse victims sometimes have not just masturbation problems, they have a lot of precocious sexuality. Okay? They can have a lot of sexual problems involved. And my answer to this is, look, abuse is not a joke. Abuse is not something which we can answer in 30 seconds on a session like this. People who have had abuse need to go for counseling. It is a complex issue. It is creating a lot of, sexual awareness often before their time. It is creating a self-loathing. It is creating the only way that they are able to express themselves sometimes sexually. So they need a lot of counseling. Okay, they need a lot of help. So this can't be handled casually answered like this, but the only answer that we can give is to get them the help they need. Okay.
Anna, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah. Just to exactly what I wanted to say. Auntie just said it very clearly. You need to get help. And also I would like to suggest that when you come on a forum like this, we cannot take one special case in this scenario, the situation with abuse, and then you cannot use this question to generalize masturbation or porn viewing. This is a very unique scenario, and this is not there for every single individual or every single teenager or young person that we meet. This is a very unique scenario, and then the solution to this scenario is absolutely different to what it is for a normal person, or I'm sorry for using that word, for somebody else. This concept of trigger, process, and reward, that is the basic concept of any addiction. It is not only with pornography or masturbation. That is for any addiction. So we can't take an specific question or a specific case scenario and then generalize it to the question of porn and masturbation and say masturbation is all right or watching porn is all right. So like Auntie correctly mentioned, this person will basically need to help, and the solution for that person is, it cannot be given in a session like this.
Yes, thank you, Anna. Just a second. Okay. I'm currently listening. I think this was a while ago. I'm currently listening to Mr. Alston's answer to practical solutions to stop porn. Introverts don't approach another person for such a taboo issue. What do you do then?
It's very difficult. Without reaching out for help, it's going to be very difficult. The struggle against porn is very much real. And then I'm sorry to say, but an introvert will basically find it even more harder, maybe fall many times. And that is one of the reasons why we made the solution to quit pornography into a video series. And it is available on Instagram. There's this ministry club called Crosswave. They have made an entire series on this and they're posting it online. So an introvert can basically look at these videos where we have whatever I'm going to share in person is also being shared there. But nevertheless, a role of a mentor or an accountability partner in your recovery is critical. Without that person playing a role, the struggle to quit pornography it just compounds multiple times. So I would suggest, or that introvert will basically have to step out. At least with one person, he needs to open out and say that I have this problem. Having said that, of course, we do have certain videos that you can help them to basically make that leap of faith, trust somebody and open out with them.
As an introvert, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, Uncle.
See, I don't go to anyone for help, so I sort out all my own problems. So how do I do it? I research it. I research it and I take steps and I take action accordingly. So, I mean, I've had addiction like tobacco addiction and things like that. And whenever I find anything in getting control of me, I take a decision not to do that. Now, what basically they are saying that the porn and everything is affected your mind. And so you need to get back your mind under order. So I said, you need to recognize that the problem is within you. Since the problem is within you, you need to take steps to set right your mind. And I found the best way of setting right your mind, get involved in good activity. And the more you get involved in good activity, the bad activities start reducing. And you find that these things slowly disappear. At least that is my experience as an introvert who never goes to anyone else for help.
Thank you, Uncle. Guys, if you're planning to leave the meeting, there's the feedback form in the chat. Please do fill it because it helps us to curate better content for you next time. There's this next question. Many girls don't watch porn, but read descriptive erotica. Is that still wrong? Then the continuous one. All religions mostly teach girls to withhold sex till marriage. It is difficult to control our hormones for so long without a release. Porn allows me to watch bodies of foreigners, which can't happen in my real life. Why does it seem so wrong to you?
Yeah, I would like to take a jab at the first part of the question, and second part I'll leave it to Auntie. Reading an erotic material is 10 times worse than watching porn. I'll tell you why. When you watch porn, it's basically the director of the video will decide how that woman will look or how the man will look. What are they going to do? How are they going to do? What is going to be the setting? Everything is predetermined for you. So you get to see the video. But when you read an erotic magazine or an erotic part of any literature, you become the director. So in your mind, as you're reading something, you create that setting in your mind. You create the hero, you create the heroine or the man or the woman. You actually imagine what is happening. So if you have heard people who have watched the movie Harry Potter and read the book Harry Potter, they always say that the book is better than the movie. Why? Because you are the guy who decides everything. In other words, you become that Harry Potter. You imagine yourself putting up all those magical things. So that's the same thing that happens with erotic literature as well. So you become the protagonist. You are the main guy in that whole episode. And then when you enact it out, your mind basically creates the whole stuff. And that is why it becomes more detrimental than watching actual porn. So if you're going to read books, it's even more problematic, and that's one of the reasons I have problems with books of Sidney Sheldon, Dan Brown, Archer, Jeffrey Archer. So all of these people have a lot of erotic content built into the story. So the stories are great, very good stories, not good stories, very thrilling stories, good to read. But along with that, there are chapters and chapters of erotic content which basically acts like triggers, which leads to masturbation and then the whole addiction process. So that would be my answer to the first part of the question. Auntie, for the second part.
I don't think I would agree with Olive on that one. Okay. Well, that's why we have a panel, so that we can also have differences of opinion. I would think that reading that books are much better than movies. Okay, because it's, for one thing, it's not exploitative of people. As I said, it's not the industry which is exploiting people into doing things. So I would think it's a lot better. But we're not going on saying that it's wrong. Okay, please take that word. That word is really, we're not trying to police you all or tell you all what to do or anything like that. We're just saying that, look, sometimes this erotic material, it gives a very wrong idea of sex. So that is what you need to understand. So even this, the girls, women's novels, okay, where nowadays it used to be Mills and Boon, and earlier it used to be, now it is silhouette romances or whatever it is. They show, for one thing, they also show this, very strange sexist kind of fantasy, okay? And the girl is always beautiful, and the guy is always handsome and rich, and he has. It's all nonsensical fantasy, okay? And I'm very glad that when I was a young person, my cousin told me, "Don't read this stuff because it is not true. This is not how it works in real life. Love is not like that." And because I had that warning in my mind, I could, though I did read some of those books when I was a young person, I can, I'm being honest, but I could read it with a critical mind, okay? And I could say that, okay, what she said was right. And I didn't find it very attractive, and I was able to laugh at them and move ahead. So which is why I'm saying sometimes you need to just laugh at this. Okay, look, sex is something to have, to enjoy and have joy and delight in later. It's not something to be sold and packaged and sort of corn you into. Okay, so yeah, reading descriptive erotica is also going to be problematic if it's going to put in weird ideas of sex in your mind. So if you must read it, I think it's slightly better than watching porn. But then if you're going to read it with a critical mind. Be able to dissect and say that this is where it's mad and this is where it's stupid and I don't want to read it anymore, whatever it is, critically. And as for this about watching the bodies of foreigners, well, that's the whole point, isn't it? It's not, again, it's not that we're telling you, though I would say that it is, in a sense, it's exploiting those foreigners. No? Do you really want to be looking at their bodies? I mean, why are we wanting to look at their bodies? If we are needing to look at their bodies, which is not going to happen in your real life, you need to think, is that real? That's a complete fantasy, and it's exploiting that foreigner, no, who for whatever reason is forced to come into that sex film. It's up to you. It's your choice. Okay. We are only pointing out the dangers of it. Up to you.
Auntie, could you also answer the part where they said women are, let me just read that. Yeah. All religions mostly teach girls to withhold sex till marriage. It's difficult to control our hormones for so long.
Well, actually, that is not true. It's your hormones don't force you to have sex. Okay, the hormones may teach you, may show you arousal, but then it neither girls nor boys is so lacking control that we can't control ourselves. Okay, all of us can control ourselves. It's not as if guys watch a porn movie and they have to, go and immediately have sex or something, or that girls cannot control themselves when they're young. There's nothing like that. Yes, we do get aroused. We are sexual beings. We can glory in that we are able to be sexually aroused. But you don't necessarily, you have to figure out what to do with it. Okay, and we are only trying to help you in figuring out what to do with it. How are you going to channelize this energy? And as we have been saying repeatedly, that look, the safest way to channelize sexual energy is in a lifelong relationship with one person where you can mutually delight each other. Okay, that would probably be the safest way to do it. If you choose to, to have other ways of release, that's up to you. But remember the dangers of it. Okay, remember that it's possible that you are exposing yourself to all these dangers.
Thank you, Auntie. Guys, for more info on the effects of the porn industry, you can check out these Insta handles. It's there in the chat box. So going to the next question. Anna, maybe you could answer this. People say that if we do no-wap, this could be more energetic. Is this true?
Look, like I said, when it comes to this particular area, there are areas which talks about for masturbation, and some research basically goes against that as well. So if you personally ask me, quoting the examples of athletes, in fact, most of these athletes refrain from sex or masturbation or any form of a sexual activity before a game or before a big event. The previous night they refrain from that. So why do they do it? Is because there's more energy inside of them to actually perform in that particular event also. So going by that particular statement itself, it is pretty much clear to say that masturbation or any sexual activity will basically drain you of your energy. And masturbation is something that if you're an addict, it happens more than twice or thrice in a particular day, and you may lose out on your energy. So it is always best to conserve your energy. The whole form of masturbation, like I previously said, it's not only about your physical energy, but it is also about your mental thought process or how it affects you mentally. So that would be my biggest reason to say no to masturbation. But just to answer this question, the answer is yes, that excessive masturbation can basically lead you to be without energy for the time.
Thank you, Anna. Here's the next question. Okay, so this is not completely about porn, but masturbation. Is it inevitable during the teenagers, especially 13 to 16-year-olds? Is there any way to prevent ourselves from masturbation when there is an urge? Anyone would like to go?
In fact, it doesn't even start at 13 to 16. The initial years, between from 2 to 6, a lot of children masturbate. Okay, because it is your body. You are learning about your body. It's physically pleasurable to touch your body. So the thing is that most children, most people will do this. Most people will do this, okay, and it's perfectly all right to do it. And most of the time, we tell parents to not panic and to not sort of knock the child's hand away and say chi 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 dirty, So as soon as we start saying things like that, we're putting the idea into the child's mind that the genitals are not clean, that touching yourself is dirty, and this is a very common thing that parents do. It's not at all required. What we need to do is kind of tell the child that, look, touching yourself is something which is done in private. It is not done in public, okay? And sort of distract the child away from it. Now, the same thing would happen in an older person, in an older child, as they are coming of age, when the sex hormones bring the child into adolescence. Yes, there is an arousal, a sexual awakening, so to speak, and the child, the boy or the girl, realizes that they get sexual urges. Now, what you do with it, how much you touch yourself, how much you do all this, is to an extent it is inevitable. You will learn and you will understand your body. No? Now, the point is, are you going to get are you going to get fixated on this thing? Are you going to control your urges? Are you going to, sort of channelize this energy properly, or are you going to get hooked into this all the time? That would be the issue. Okay? So let's not look at it as touching yourself as a sin, and immediately it's become a big thing and all that. Okay, I would think that is going to put unnecessary burden on children. Okay, so what we would need to tell them is that, look, it happens. You are human beings. You are sexual beings. You will understand your body slowly. Learn what to do with it. That's my answer.
Thank you, Auntie. How does one know that they are addicted to porn? I sometimes watch it weekly. Is that being addicted? Anna, maybe, or Auntie. Sure, anybody.
Addiction is something which is addiction is something which has many facets. One is that there is a use beyond what you intend. Okay, so you intend to watch 5 minutes and you watch excess. You intend to just watch one episode of something and you watch 10 episodes or something. So when you intend to watch something or you intend to limit it and you can't limit it. When you continue to use it despite problems, okay, for instance, you have an assignment the next day, but you are binge watching something, or you have some submission due, but you are watching porn or whatever it is. So despite a negative consequence, either socially, occupationally, or whatever, and in the terms of marriage, perhaps in a problem with your wife or spouse or husband, but still you are continuing to watch, you're continuing to do it. So that is another feature of addiction. Another feature of addiction is that there is what we call tolerance. So the amount of the material required for that same high keeps increasing. So if it's smoking, you start with 1, and then you need 2, and then you need 3. So that's how it is. But similarly, if it is porn, you need higher and higher intensity porn to arouse you to that same level. Okay, so that is another feature of tolerance. Then you have things like withdrawal, which is that if you don't take it, you have a certain problem. Okay, so for instance, if you don't drink alcohol, you're addicted to alcohol, then you get tremors of your hands and stuff like that. So in sexual addiction, you will have this desire, the strong craving and desire to go and do that particular thing. Only then you will get some kind of satisfaction. So there are these various features of addiction. And if all these things are there, that you're using it in greater and greater measure, you're using it more than you want to, you've tried to stop and you haven't been able to stop. That was one of the questions in your what's it called, in your initial part. So these are all the features of addiction. If you have them, please take it seriously and go and get help.
Thank you, Auntie. The next question, it's 2 questions, but it's related. Let me read it out. If my partner and I both enjoy BDSM or have our own fetishes, what is your problem with that? You watch videos to help your relationships. Why can't we watch porn to help us with sex if that's what we like and want? A similar one. In fact, girls know more than us in matters of sex. Positions in sex toys are little known to men. B, as I like to explore categories of videos to learn and apply as she wishes in the bedroom. Anna, maybe you want to take a shot.
Yeah, maybe I'll just take a shot at it. This question, it talks about your choices. At the end of the day, like Auntie said at the beginning, we are not here to basically police you or to say that God to do this and enforce it down on your throat. At the end of the day, it's all a matter of choices. So all that I'm trying to say is that your choices will have consequences. So if your choices are great, then you'll have a great consequence. If the choices are not so good, then obviously the consequences of that is going to be bad. All through this whole session, I think we've been talking about the consequences of watching porn and the consequences of masturbation and how it can basically lead to an addiction. This whole concept of watching pornography with your partner. I already spoke about this on the whole topic of the sense of touch. My point is, you are basically telling me that you are not able to get that amount of arousal from your partner, and you need a visual stimulus of somebody else for you to get that basic arousal, and then you commit that sexual act. Maybe your partner is okay with it, then like I said, the choice is yours. But to be very honest with you, that is not the ideal position to be at. That's not the natural way of doing things. The whole concept of self-pleasure, right, or instant gratification or self-gratification, in the long run, it can be detrimental. To a certain extent, you may feel empowered to say that, okay, it's great for me because I'm able to fulfill myself. The concept of using sex toys to say that, okay, as a woman, I can feel empowered, I can feel that I can satisfy my own needs. But I want to tell you that is not how we have been created. We have been created to be interdependent on each other, and then we have our own roles to fulfill. Now, there's no question of to say the man is greater, the woman is not so much. This whole hierarchy is out of the window now. We need to understand that we are basically interdependent, but not in terms to say the man is greater and the woman is not. Even on an equal footing level, we have our own needs to be met by each other. And this whole concept of looking at something else, and like Auntie rightly mentioned, what you see today is not going to help you tomorrow. So it is going to be progressive by nature. Porn watching is progressive by nature. But as it progresses, you will start thinking that, okay, into this relationship, maybe I'll have somebody else. And most of this, I want to remind you, they are all fantasies, and fantasies cannot become real life. So even in real life, you're basically trying to cheat yourself, cheat your partner into believing something which is not there. Ati, over to you if you want to add.
None of us have a problem if you have a particular fetish and you want to do, if you are in complete sync with each other and you want to do it, it's fine. But again, as we said, do you really need to, if you're using porn as a sex educative tool, that only brings out another issue, which probably none of us have addressed, which is that a lot of this problem is because we don't talk about sex normally. We don't give our children sex education. If we have to go to porn videos to learn about sex education, that's a sad state of affairs. No? Actually, we should be talking about this openly. Parents should be discussing this with children. We should be discussing, the use of vibrators, the use of whatever. What is the place for these things? But we don't, unfortunately. And so, if you are forced to go to sex videos to learn about sex education, I'm sorry that we have not, as a society, we have not taught our children enough, which is a fact. That is the truth. Okay, if you are both completely in sync with it, fine, I guess. Okay, but then, as Olive said, do you really need to watch the video to learn? Okay, a lot of it comes probably fairly instinctively. We are animals after all, and we animals don't need to be trained into it. Neither do we really. Okay, yeah, but figure it out. Okay, we're not here to police your desires or anything like that. Okay, it's not very true that girls know more than us in matters of sex. Okay, that is not true at all. Okay, anybody can be ignorant about it. Anybody can be knowledgeable about it. Anyway, all the best to you, and we are here for help if we can give it here.
Yes, Auntie. The next one. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Masturbation is a stimulus to a person's erogenous areas when they do it to themselves. So, are you saying that it's not right when you do it to yourself, but it's okay when your partner does it to you? Anyone?
Ali, you want to take a shot? Or?
Yeah, sure. No, see, we're not saying that. I'm saying very clearly that we are human beings with bodies. We are sexual beings. We will all discover our bodies. Okay. And yes, we will all, find that certain parts of our body are pleasurable. It's fine. You can do it. There's no. I mean, it's probably universal. Everybody does it. As I said, small children start doing it. They touch their bodies. They find it's pleasurable. There's no problem with any of that. But in its full form, the sexual expression is a dual act, isn't it? In its nicest form, it's a time of mutual satisfaction. You're satisfying each other, you're enjoying each other's company. It's an expression of love. Okay, so doing it to yourself is a very well it's temporary. It is less than partner sex. Okay, that's all that we are suggesting. And we just want you to enjoy partner sex at its fullest and most glorious form. That's all. No problem. Okay, so.
Thank you, Auntie. This question: does years of masturbation affect the ability to have a child for both genders?
I don't think so. No, it doesn't.
Anna, would you like to weigh in?
Like I said, there are research on to share both sides of the coin. There are medical research which says that it does not affect your body, but at the same time, I've come across a lot of online research which claims that not sure in women, but in men it leads to erectile dysfunction, loss in sperm count. So it's very
No,
subjective.
I really don't think that is reliable research, Olive. No.
Like I said, Auntie, there are both sides to the coin. So at the end of it,
reliable research, yeah. Anyway,
both sides of it. So, but my biggest problem with masturbation has always been that the whole process is combined with porn. So rather than as an entity on its own, it's not that we only masturbate. It was always combined, or most probably it is always combined with porn watching, and that is really detrimental. So that's
Thank you, Anna. Now okay. How do I speak to a female friend by looking at her eyes and not her private areas? Uncle, would you like to say something? You've been quite a long time.
See, my whole thesis has been that you need to control the porn inside you, not what is outside is irrelevant, frankly. See, when they asked that question about novels, I have been an extensive reader of all kinds of silly novels, and they all have all kinds of erotic passages which don't affect me. I'm looking at the story. So it all depends on what you're looking at. So when you're talking to a female friend, and if you're not able to keep your eyes off of private parts, that means you have a serious psychological issue in yourself, which you need to deal with. So the best way of dealing with it is to confront. So you say, okay, I have this problem that I am basically sex focused, and I need to get away from that. So how do I get away from that? I have the opposite view. I'm going to talk to a girl, trying to understand her and trying to hear her and trying to listen to her, and not look at her as a sex object. So I need to do that negative training of my mind. I don't know, Jamila probably have a better way of dealing with it, but that's how I deal with it. I train myself to do differently, that I am going to be a different kind of a person. Okay. And then, of course, if you have the discipline, look into a rise, but that is not going to solve the problem, because the problem which is inside you has to be solved. And to solve the problem inside you, you need to say that girls or the opposite sex is not a sex object, but is an individual, and I'm going to relate with the person. Okay, I think you all can give better answers.
No, that was a perfect answer.
Yes, indeed, Uncle.
Thank you, Uncle. Okay. Okay, the next one. After quitting porn, how can we stop it by getting into it again? How do we stop ourselves from getting into it again and again?
See, with any, I'll just quickly take it all.
Yes,
Then
yes.
I was saying that in any addictive behavior, there are probably episodes of relapse and remission. Okay, so if you get into it again, just don't get discouraged. Just stop again and get into the process of stopping it again. And usually with time it comes down. Continue, Olive. Sorry.
Yeah, that's actually right. In the case of any kind of a relapse, the best solution is for you to just pick yourself and restart your recovery process. And the role of a mentor or an accountability partner basically plays a lot here. That person will basically need to help someone in their process, especially at times of relapse. Especially when you make a decision to quit porn, you need to also understand that at some point of time that relapse will happen. So you basically need to prepare for it. It's not that it just came out of the blue. So we need to be prepared to say that that relapse will happen. The first time when I decided to quit porn, for the first 3 days I didn't watch porn, but the fourth day there was this huge craving that I did watch porn. But the good part is that it didn't stop there. My recovery process started on. So from 3 days, it became 3 weeks, 3 weeks to 3 months, and then many more months later on, this addiction to porn was basically taken off from my life. So having said this example, you need to understand the best solution for any relapse is to restart your recovery process. Talk to your mentor, talk to your accountability partner, and then do the whole thing over and over again. But very importantly, please identify what triggered that relapse. What did you do that this relapse happened? What was the trigger? And then the next time when you restart, isolate that trigger. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Anna. I think we have one last question. Consensual sex isn't wrong according to social norms. Extramarital affairs are mostly consensual. Instead of masturbating and watching porn, can I use elder women who only look for sex?
I have a problem with the word use.
I have a problem with the entire question. How long is this process going to go on? We cannot look. I'm like we already said. We are not here to police you, but at the same time, the whole society functions on certain moral laws and codes and values. Now, we just can't go ahead and say that just because it's okay with me and my partner, I can go ahead and do it with somebody else. Now, let me ask you this question from the whole question is the whole concept of using the other elder woman. Are you sure that the other elder woman or the other woman's partner is okay with that? What is the situation that he or she comes from? We don't know. In other words, we cannot do something which may just seem right for us. We also need to understand that as a society, how does it impact the society? Where does it lead to? All of that comes into play. So there has to be some form of a moral law or a moral code through which we govern our life. So we just can't say that, okay, in the name of empowerment or in the name of freedom, I get to choose what I want to do. But we need to have some form of a moral code or a moral value which should govern our life. So that would be my answer. We just can't go ahead and do whatever you want.
Thank you. Uncle, would you like to say something, Lee Uncle?
See, the consensual sex isn't wrong. It's basically not understanding the importance of the family. And once we say that consensual sex is okay, and so we can do what we want in that area, you're destroying a family. Remember that we are talking about masturbation and porn. Consensual sex is destroying you even more in your ability to relate with people. That's why when you also said that by social norms, depends on which social norms you're looking at. Old-fashioned India, it was not approved. Modern India may be approved, I don't know. So that's a changing norm. But my basic concept is that as the fabric of the family starts disintegrating and the concept of the family breaks, you find that whole society starts getting degraded and you have a lot of the problems which you're facing in society today. That is the only thing I would say.
Thank you, Uncle. Andrew, I think there's one more question. Let me just, yeah. Anna, maybe you could answer this. Is no-wap for 3 months good for health?
Like I said, this is going to be Auntie is going to basically disagree with me. My point is, I think it is good for your health. It definitely helps you, but that's what I believe in. My whole point about masturbation is this: it cannot be there without porn watching. That's something that I keep stressing on. So as long as there's no porn, in fact, I would encourage the questioner to answer the question, is there no porn watching in his or her life? If that is there, then that's great. And that's absolutely great. Masturbation is basically a kind of an end product. It's like an end of that process, which delivers you that release of dopamine, that reward center. So if you ask me, it is fine. But the real question that we need to address here is that how is your mental state in terms of watching porn? That would be the real answer to this question.
Auntie, there's one question here that's addressed to you.
Yes.
Yeah. During withdrawal from porn, when an addicted person puts a sudden stop to watching porn, in a few weeks, the person experiences severe behavioral, mental, physical stress, which makes the person want to quit and relapse. What can be done to ease that process? Basically, making withdrawal bearable until the person's brain goes back to normal.
See, there are very few cases where there is such a strong biological problem that you need medication. Okay? There are a few cases, but mostly all that you require is for somebody to be with you, somebody to whom you're accountable, somebody to whom you talk and you fill your life with, as we said, fill your life with lots of pleasant activities, replace this behavior with lots of other good behaviors, which are not dangerous, are not going to cause this kind of a dual sort of ambivalent nature, whether it's good, bad, gray, secretive, guilt, shame, hiding, all these things. Replace it with behaviors which are unambivalent and which are helpful, and replace the soloness with companionship and friendship and people around you. And if you do all that, then it's much easier. Then you won't be relying on this for your reward cycle. Okay, you won't be depending on this for your system to kick in. You need to have other places from where you get your reward chemicals. Okay, so exercise is good, friendship is good. Okay, all those things will make you feel good. So you can try all those things. If nothing works, and if you need, if it's a a real bad case of addiction, maybe even medication in a few cases may be required. There are a few cases which I have given medication because there was an obsessive or a compulsive element in that. So that has happened, but most of the time people can get off it without that kind of help.
Thank you, Auntie. There's one final question. Uh, will getting married help an individual to get rid of the urges and porn?
Very simple answer, no. The problem is inside you, not outside.
Yeah.
That's how you solve the problem. The problem is inside you.
Yeah. So if that question, if marriage can solve that problem, we will not find people who are married who will have pornography as an issue. So we do find a lot of people with issues with pornography and masturbation in marriage.
Better to deal with all these issues before marriage, whatever your issues. Go into marriage as a whole and happy person without all these crutches. That's better.